Welcome, everyone. So excited to bring you another LinkedIn Live hosted by Consciously Unbiased today. And first, just want to start off by giving an opportunity to our panelists to introduce themselves. We've got a lot of great information and examples in store about how to build inclusion through the ERGs in the workplace. So I'm going to go ahead and let our esteemed panelists share their roles and their names, and then we'll get started. We'll start off with Bernarda.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hopefully you guys are having a great week. My name is Bernarda Arias. I am the Director for Community Outreach and Engagement at Roswell Park. Roswell Park is actually a cancer institute here in Western New York. It was the first healthcare center exclusively to focus on cancer.
Fantastic. Glad to have you. Stacie. Stacie, can you hear us? I know she was having a little bit of tech trouble getting in. We'll come back to Stacie. Treneice.
Hello, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, especially with a panelist such as this, and you'll pick up exactly what I'm putting down once they start talking about this topic. But my name is Treneice Collins. I am the founder of the Virtual Coffee DEI consulting firm, where we address different DEI concerns and issues with small mom and pop organizations to massive global organizations, and really designing bespoke DEI strategies for these organizations based on need and, of course, scale. So happy to be here. Cannot wait to start talking about this topic and also to learn from the panelists that are here. There's a lot to learn, so I hope you guys are, leaning into this discussion.
Awesome. Glad to have you. Isabel.
Yeah, so nice to see everyone. I'm Isabel. I'm the Vice President of Insurance Operations at Lenox Advisors, where I am a member of the DEIB Advisory Board, and I lead their people pillar. Concurrently, I was also a co-chair of our Latin BRG, and I am the co-founder of Misfits Unplugged, where we are women of color focused on career empowerment and business consulting.
Oh, I love that. I love that title too, Misfits Unplugged. It's great. It's very catchy. Cassity.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. Again, very honored to be part of this amazing panel. My name is Cassity Curtis. My pronouns are she, her. I work for a company called Allegis Global Solutions, or AGS, if you know us in the industry. We're the leading provider of workforce solutions, and there I'm a program executive for one of our larger accounts. That means I just lead a big team and just make sure our program runs well. But I also oversee our LGBTQ plus ERG. It's called Spectrum, and I have been the chair for the last year and into this year. So I'm very honored to be here and excited about the dialogue.
Great. And Max.
What's up, everybody? How y'all doing today? I'm so happy to be here to talk about this topic because it's so important. I'm a senior talent sourcer at Activision Blizzard, and I'm currently the global chair of the ABK Veterans Employee Network.
Wonderful. I love that you're going to bring that veterans perspective to the conversation. So, all right, well, let's dive in. One of the things that, I think right off the bat to talk about is there's all types of ERGs. There's BRGs, there's affinity groups, employee networks. And that is really about kind of the evolution of where each organization is. So can you share a little bit about where your organization is in the evolution of the ERGs and the growing impact that they're making on the organization?
I don't mind starting here, and Quinn, remind me, are we going in a specific order, same order of each one, or just whoever
wants to jump in and share on that? Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, so critical because I have been in the industry for over a decade and I've worked for several companies, and the evolution of the ERGs is different depending on the era, the company, where they're at, what their goals, initiatives are. And so I've been a part of affinity groups that are just kind of grassroots, off the grounds, trying to just build community and belonging for individuals in a company. I've helped to build ERGs that are more formalized and really have a structure and expected intention. And now at AGS, I'm really trying to help form BRGs and like really click into the business and the opportunities that exist to partner with DE&I strategy and make sure that the company really sees the benefit and value of the people, by the people, what we're here for. So I've seen a lot of those evolutions, but I think every company is so different. So I'd love to hear from everybody else in terms of like maybe where they're at in that journey.
Absolutely. Anybody else like to comment on how you define it at your current company and anything about that evolution that you think is important for our listeners to hear?
So I can share, one of the things that I did not share is that I am actually the founder and now co-chair for Unidos a Roswell, which is actually an energy group that focuses on the Hispanic, celebrating and learning about the Spanish culture here. So as a member and a co-chair, I've seen both sides of the impact. As a member, being part of the group helps support employees to be their authentic self and can help people feel more included in the workplace, which is huge in terms of belonging. Through these groups, people have the ability to connect with different leaders, which can potentially lead to career advancement. And as a co-chair now, I can also share that I have the opportunity to create different things for members of our group to elevate their career, whether it's through educational workshops or even volunteer opportunities in our community. There's a level of responsibility on my end to support everyone in whatever area they express that they need help on. So to share like a personal story, in discussing with the group the plan for 2024, one of the things that we decided is to sort of focus on career development. So as you guys know, headshots are a big deal now, especially for LinkedIn, for bios. So as a group, we're going next month to kind of take headshots, individual headshots. So we're looking always for things like this to help our employees grow. Retention is huge for us here at Roswell. And so these opportunities, we don't want them to leave, but we want them to stay here and actually help them elevate, whether it's through a promotion or another opportunity. That's what we look for. So it's about the person on its own. So.
Absolutely. I think it's great there's an organizational impact for sure, but there's also that individual impact. And you just hit on that. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share on just like member impact while we're kind of on that topic?
Yeah, one thing I do want to mention is, the role of the ERGs is pivotal. I mean, remember, the first ERG was created back in the 70s to address the civil rights unrest that was happening in the US, right? When Xerox CEO, and I emphasize the CEO is the one that actually broached that and created the first ERGs, which we are seeing offsprings of right now, the intention was for the employees to have really an impact in shifting and changing the business and the culture within the DNA of any organization. So I love, I echo exactly what, Cassity and Bernarda just mentioned is when you see an ERG having that kind of impact, it really allows you to lean in and take note. And I think as we even continue the discussion, we'll find that the impact that the ERG has is more than we really give them credit for.
Absolutely. Wow, that's such a great reference. Max, I know you've mentioned before just like, the impact that this has on veterans coming in, to the corporate space. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes, I can. Being able to find that sense of community, especially coming out of the military, stepping into the corporate world, having that group that you can connect with, having people that have similar thoughts and processes like you, makes it easier to become a part of that company's culture, makes it easier to be welcome. Because most of the times you feel like, oh, I'm new here, I have like this military thought in my head, and I'm not as welcome. But the ERGs is a safe space where you can find that group, find that tribe of people, and it's so many different ERGs that you don't have to be a part of one. And what I did while I was a part of the company is join other ERGs just to learn from and connect with other people, because you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times in the military and in corporate America, you can learn why something's a certain way. And those ERGs is that safe space and that welcoming environment where you can do that. And that was my experience.
Absolutely. That's such a great point.
You know,
Anybody
I was
else?
going to say on that, Quinn, I love that, Max, because I think, you know, being a queer person, you can cover that. Like, I have the luxury and the ability to just hide that or to use it as an advantage. And something I learned last year that I brought back to our ERGs was like really helping individuals find their outvantage. And sort of like what you talked about, Max, it's like the who you are and the journey you've been on and the experiences that you've had that made you who you are. When you're around people that have already figured that out and can help you find that faster so you can be successful and you can find your way, the power of that is just incredible. And I just have loved being able to be part of that journey with people early on in their career, and such the joy that you get when you can return the favor to somebody to help them find themselves faster and be able to take the experiences that they have and make them powerful within an organization, and then help other people see that those people are special. So I completely echo that it's just such a powerful thing when you actually have really rooted ERGs where people know they can go there to get that kind of support. That says something about the company that you work for. And if you don't have it, it just kind of inspires you to be like, I want to create that for my company because I know our company's great. I want to help other people to see that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll add something here too. So for Misfits Unplugged, we do a lot of speaking engagements in diverse colleges in the tri-state area. So as we're talking to a lot of the students that are younger, you know, and learning about what their professional journeys will look like, a lot of it when they think about joining the corporate world is hiding a piece of themselves and not coming to work 100% of their authentic selves. So we've done some exercises, kind of learn what that looks like. So a lot of it is hiding their culture, hiding their accent. You know, it could be from, you know, having curly hair and straightening it to go to work, or not bringing specific food. So, you know, I take for granted that I've been in my career as long as I have, that some of those things earlier on people don't know. And I think that when you build these ERG, BRGs, and as part of your onboarding process, it kind of resets what the expectation of the company is supposed to be. So allowing them the ability to be themselves, find people that either look like them or gone through different experiences, and that they can, you know, grow from different BRGs. And I know we'll talk about that, but allowing them to learn from other folks or allies, expressing an avenue of expressing themselves, and really just creating a safe space for them in the workplace that they can be themselves.
Absolutely. I'm going to go back just a little bit when we were talking about the evolution of ERGs, and you know, there's been so much work being done, and Treneice, you referenced, you know, the 70s and how this has evolved since then. But there are still organizations that are still very new on their DEI journey in general, and maybe ERGs is where they're looking to start. What advice would you have for, you know, those organizations, those leaders that want to get an ERG started? What are some best practices or tips or even learning lessons that any of you have experienced getting started?
One thing, if you don't mind, I'll just jump in. You know, how an ERG starts is, it honestly makes all the difference. You know, what are some of the strategies or outcomes that you've thought through or put in through the inception of the ERG? And specifically, what organizational strategies is the ERG aligning to? And that alignment is pivotal. Also, is the ERG aligned to your DEI priorities? And this is, of course, even if you don't have a rooted DEI team, what are your DEI priorities? You could actually create those. And then also an important factor is what is the intention behind individuals joining your ERG? And I'll use an example. You know, if you have someone who is a part of the LGBTQIA community that does join, let's say, the LGBTQ plus ERG, right? Just made up the name. But let's say they join that ERG. Yes, it's very, very typical for us and natural for us to assume that that person is looking for psychological safety. And that is true, absolutely. However, your members could also be looking for career advancement opportunities. They could be looking for opportunities to see leadership engagement. All of those different factors play into the intentionality that goes behind creating a successful ERG. Another big part of creating a successful ERG, regardless of the size of the organization, does it align with your people process? Does it align with your recruitment goals, for example, your expansion of the organization? Perfect way is if you're aligning your ERGs to TA, talent acquisition as an example, you've got to also remember that there's an alignment that has to take place between upskilling and reskilling your current ERG members in order to meet that human capital, that organizational advancement that you're so longing for. There's got to be an alignment there. One thing that I like to do a lot is I like to reinforce the fact that who starts the ERG is pivotal. And I firmly believe that when an ERG is started by the CEO, which rarely happens, it is a recipe for massive success. And what I mean start by the CEO is the CEO should be the first member, should be the first employee. The communication should actually come from the CEO when starting an ERG. That initiative should come from the CEO. Now, does it mean that this individual is going to be sitting through all the meetings? Of course not, right? However, it does mean that the CEO is given the individuals within the organization that permission to actually show up. And that's really what it does. It empowers the employees to actually show up with their best, the best self, if you would. So how an ERG starts, pivotally important. That leads to success, along with loads of other very, very crucial things. But I think those are key points.
Oh, great points. Thank you, Treneice. I love that. Man, if we had all the CEOs showing up as the first member, I think that would speak volumes about the impact and really getting ERGs set up for success. Such a great example. Anybody else want to add to that?
I was going to add to it. So to talk about building it, I also want to emphasize that anyone can be the person that leads it and has the idea, and just come with the flexibility that you're going to have ebbs and flows of members coming in and out and how it's going to be established. But I think you don't have to have a PhD in DEI. You have to come with your passion and then solicit the folks around you. So I think that's step one, along with all that Treneice said, which is incredible. Having the core values or your guiding principles and what you want to see and be a part of growing, I think is step one. And then I was a part of Lenox's and building their D&I and what that looks like. So it's you bringing people together that have the same passion as you, and then having open, transparent conversations about what may be some problems, where is there opportunities to continue to grow, and then also highlighting your successes. Once you've kind of established the baseline of what D&I means to that company, then I think there's an opportunity for you to send out information and being more transparent and over communicating what you're building. I am a person that loves sending out surveys. So I would send out a survey that would be day 2 after you create it, and see what interest lies out there from, all of the employees or anyone that's part of the organization. Getting their feedback is day 1 and part 1 of building this inclusive environment is taking into consideration their voices. So, whether it be a BRG or just the board or these little affinity groups, is kind of identifying what everyone wants and then establishing them and starting, I think, small, so you can work out the kinks, give yourself time to learn and grow. I think for anyone might agree is that when you build it, there's going to come with some growing pains and pivoting and learning. You're going to make mistakes, but just being open that anyone can start it no matter where you are in the organization. It's just having your voice and being confident to say, I would like to create this and why, and then, building the team around you.
Awesome. I love that. Stacie, I think you're with us. Can you hear us?
Oh my gosh.
You're
Yes,
here.
I'm
All
here.
right.
Stacie!
This conversation is so wonderful. I don't know if I'm just caught up in bad technology today or what, but the microphone is the best I can do.
That's good enough for us, Stacie. We'd love to hear from you on this one, because I know you, in your role at M&T Bank, you really have created quite a program as it relates to ERGs and BRGs. And do you have anything to add or advice about how organizations can just get started if they haven't really implemented anything yet?
Oh my gosh, it's so many great points here. And I am in alignment with a lot of them from a standpoint of, at M&T, it has to come from the employees. Our culture provides that opportunity. So, for example, it's wonderful if an executive wants to start a chapter in different areas or even recommends a newer charter. So at M&T, we have 15 charters. We have about 85 chapters. We have over 8,000 employees that participate in the program. We need to hear from the employees who want to start chapters because they are the ones that will be doing the heavy lifting, creating the business plans, running the budgets. We have fiscal responsibilities around it, but it's building their leadership skills. It's them connecting with all of the different backgrounds and perspectives, and each of them is unique. So, we just create that mosaic of diversity through race, ethnicity, age, disability, family status, nationality, veteran status, sexual orientation, and gender identity. It's so important to support the employees who want to start newer chapters. And so we have a pretty tight framework around it. But I would gladly talk with anyone. Look me up on LinkedIn. I'll gladly talk with anyone about how to start resource groups, how to start a program, how to keep it going. We have an application process. We also, in turn, have a business plan, but we set up a framework around how they get started and to build success behind that because we want them to be successful.
I love that. Having a framework like that is great. And, and it probably evolved, over time as well. You probably started off with one kind of framework and you added to it or changed it over time as you learned it, as you had lessons learned.
So much, right? So many things. We started back in the sort of early 2000s, and we've evolved with acquiring different organizations. But we started as affinity groups, and we have evolved today to resource groups. And we've got diversity, equity, inclusion groups. And we also today have affinity groups. And so because of the DEI work that we do and the reporting that I'm sure each of you do as well, your organizations, it is important to share that data and showcase the work that we are doing, but also it allows the individuals at the organization to see what we're doing and the importance of the information that is reported. So it's the intersectionality, it's the culture, it's people feeling included, it's seeing themselves in the work. Each time we do some sort of DEI report, it is amazing and outstanding to me that you see just the tremendous amount of gain and community involvement, volunteer involvement, the talent improvements that we've made, so many things together.
Awesome. So you mentioned you said a word, Stacie, intersectionality, and that leads me to want to learn from you all on what are the different ways and benefits of having an intersectional approach when it comes to ERGs, understanding that individuals very rarely only identify as one thing or one part of their identity. There's almost all of us have all kinds of different facets to that. So how is intersectionality playing a role in the planning, in the engagement? Anybody have anything to share on that?
I think the reality is it can get a little complicated, right? Because like what Stacie said, you build the framework and you encourage everybody to build a plan and you get everybody excited and they have these goals and they want to survey. And so now you think about, okay, well, that works when you've got 1, 2, 5, 6. Well, when you start getting into 15, 30, 45 groups where they're all passionate, they're all important, they're all equal in weight and stature, it can get a little bit complicated. And this is something that we talked about last year. And at my company at AGS, that became a real challenge because people were giving me the feedback that says like, my whole calendar is full of great ERG events. Like it's almost analysis paralysis. It's almost like I want to do them all and I can't do them all, so I do none of them. So we saw a significant impact in terms of our attendance, and the feedback from our people was just like, we got a little overwhelmed with the excitement around the ERGs. And that was kind of the detriment. It's like, it's almost, we had to scale back and think about more meaningful partnerships that we could do with their ERGs, where we could come together to help people recognize intersectionality, because as you mentioned, Quinn, it's so real. And I think everybody thinks about it, but doesn't know how to put that into play in their workforce. And so it's almost creating opportunities where we can come together to do opportunities and activities and speaking engagements that hit on multiple topics and frameworks of what we're all trying to challenge. You know, at AGS, my focus this year is around creating a mentorship program that combines multiple ERGs. It's not just mentorship for queer people, it's for all underrepresented groups of people. So how do we come together to build mentorship and connection between those people? Because we all have something more in common than not. And so I think I just have loved the kind of evolution, learning from scaling fast and the excitement around it, and then figuring out more meaningful ways to combine our ERG activities and focus.
Yeah, I would love to. Can I take a stab at this one? Because I'm in agreement with you, but what I will offer up to this group is the key word is collaboration. So when our resource groups develop business plans on an annual basis, so they turn in a business plan at the end of the year for the following calendar year, and one of the asks that we have, that the Office of DEI that we have for them, is to collaborate with other groups. So in other words, with AARG, with Black History Month, it's collaborating with perhaps the immigrant and refugee group, connecting with the Women's Leadership Network, connecting with Pride. We do the same thing with June, for example, for Pride Month. But the ask is that they work together. Listen, this is a quality game. This is not about quantity. We having 85 chapters, if they all execute on 2 and 3 events really, really well, that's half of the calendar year.
Mhm.
And but what we look for them to do is focus in on a marquee event or a signature event, so that we can get someone from the executive leadership team or several executives to attend those signature events where they're collaborating with a lot of different chapters. So the representation is there, the exposure, you cast that wide net and you just have more opportunities. So we have been anchoring ourselves to collaboration and thinking more along those lines, because you are exactly right about all of the events that you just spoke about.
Yeah, wonderful.
I wanted to add something real quick too.
Yeah.
It's very important that you do collaborate together, because we're all
Yeah.
human beings, and it takes somebody being at the top of all the employee networks or employee groups to bring those leaders together so that the calendars can match, so that we're not duplicating efforts and that we're sharing the information. It's so important to share it with the groups when an event happens, because you don't know if there's intersectionality in your group until you share that event and somebody clicks on it and they're there and they're happy that they were included, and that you support your other networks and groups that are alongside you.
Agreed.
I agree. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was going to share
The
quickly.
quality
Sorry.
versus quantity. I love that.
Yep.
Sorry, was that you, Bernarda? Go ahead.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. I was going to share that that's actually one of the things that I've been pushing hard for us here at Roswell. We have 14 energy groups. And actually, we decided to start meeting as all the leaders together in a committee where we can share what we each are doing and how we can support each other. So I think that's definitely huge. Like Stacie said, when we work together, we share resources, but also we maximize on attendance. And I don't know how it is in your individual organizations, but here, our work comes first. And therefore, we don't want the employees to be overwhelmed because they're missing something that they want to be a part of, because, they have to be at work because they cannot attend so many things in a given week. So collaboration is definitely important.
And Quinn, I would love to add some research that does actually support what everyone has just mentioned. You know, the U.S. Census, and I said before, I am a data geek, if you don't mind. So
We
the
love
US
your data. Share it with us.
um, and this was recent. This is actually last year, and it wasn't just the U.S. Census, but also McKinsey and Co. that did similar research. So it says that the U.S. Census showed that there is a 276% increase in people who now self-identified as multicultural, or like we talked about, intersectionality, right? So
Mm.
the research is speaking loud and clear that this is only going to increase. This is not going away. You know, we live in a very diverse population, if you would, diverse world in itself. So finding those intersectionalities where those crossovers happen and allowing it to work for ourselves. You know, the research is also saying that communication and collaboration is the key to mending all of these things, to bring a more inclusive culture. So if for organizations that are listening or individuals who are listening, regardless of the size of your organization, whether you're a global footprint or you're starting out scrappy in terms of your ERG development, finding where the connections are is going to be key. It's going to make or break the success of one ERG. It's going to prevent your ERGs from having silos or having rogue priorities. And it will make everything kind of a little bit more seamless in terms of the efforts.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful. All really, really great examples. All right, I'm going to play off of the word collaboration here again. And there are different examples, and I know, you know, various stages of maturity where ERGs are collaborating with other departments like talent acquisition, talent management, talent development. Does anybody have any comments on that, or have any examples they'd like to share of how their ERGs are collaborating with those other groups in the business?
I mean, I'd be happy to, or someone else. You know, I think Max and I talked about this when we met with you, Quinn. You know, from a talent development standpoint, we have done a lot of work around the veterans side of the house, and I am really proud of our talent team for getting in there. And a number of years ago, we brought veterans into the organization in sort of a, you know, an entry level role, if you will. And the talent team, by working with the veterans group, we understand resumes more. We understand the qualifications. And I think Max had said it when we met, you know, it's around knowing that there are a lot of leadership skills that veterans have. And it's a matter of knowing what the resume is saying, but also then how does that parlay into a job at M&T? And there's just a lot of alignment. And we have worked extremely hard with our talent acquisition partners to bring more veterans to the bank. And we want to bring even more to the organization, but not just at the entry level roles. We have a lot of veterans leading large teams, individual contributors, you name it. But the skills definitely transfer into our organization, and quite frankly, into a million organizations throughout this country.
Oh, that's a great example. I love that.
So I was going to say that at Lenox, our D&I and BRGs all align to HR, like we fall underneath them from an organizational perspective. And from the people pillar that I oversee, all of the things that we create, we work alongside human resources to make sure that it's aligned with all employees. Specifically, I talked about, you know, we're creating a mentorship program or community of practices. With the mentorship, we want to make sure that it is available to all. And it was one of the first things that I wanted when I took this opportunity and started building it, was based off of a very, very talented employee leaving because he was entry level, couldn't get to the next level because he didn't have the skill set, but didn't really have the resources to get to what was next. and instead had to pivot to another company to kind of take that step. So identifying that there was a gap there and we were losing talent, and we wanted to think about how do we work on the inclusivity, but also retention and growing the talent that we have internally. So we started building the mentorship and working with HR in that aspect to help all new employees pair up, within the first year so that we can continue building them and keeping them engaged. Also, from a community of practice perspective, the first one that we're working on this now, we're going to create it and launch it next year. But one of them is specifically a kind of newbie, new hire, like buddy system, that they have an opportunity of transparency and working with people from all aspects of the organization. Because when you first join, you're drinking from a fire hose. So whether you're day one or 6 months in, you can still utilize some of the resources that are around you of how to navigate the different scenarios. So I think it's really important to work with the HR department to make sure that we are not only recruiting talent and diverse talent, but also retaining them and giving them the platform to continue to grow in the organization.
Oh, I love that. I think that's such a great point. And it really does help to embed, that program or that best practice throughout the enterprise when you collaborate and work together, either interdepartmental or even outside of your department to get work done in the DEI space. So
Quinn, before you move to the next one too, I love that, Isabel, because I think there's a point of like, we've got to make sure the right people come to the organization. And I love the piece where it's, what are you doing to promote them? Like, how are you supporting, developing, and encouraging them throughout this journey that they're on in the company? And I think one thing that I've been really trying to focus on for AGS is like where to embed, equity within the promotion channels. Like when we're thinking about high potential people, are we looking at those people for the diverse qualities that they have, for the experiences that they bring to the table? And I think, sometimes we take credit for making promotions and we're like, yay, we got Cassity and I know she's queer, but you're like, but did we help Cassity because she's queer and a female in this organization before she got that promotion, or did Cassity do that? So it's like really just challenging the leaders who are making the promotions, right? That doesn't always sit with HR to decide who gets promoted within organizations. So it's just making sure there's that pause of equity to say, do we have the right channels and are those pipelines really full? And then rooting it back to, okay, well then how can we use the ERGs to help us funnel more of those people and provide mentorship and provide the connection and giving them buddies, and like how you can make all of those kind of link together so that when that decision is made, we feel really good about the candidates that are coming up into the promotion channels.
Absolutely. I think I've also heard from several of you that just the role that ERGs have played in integrating key DEI related concepts into the learning and development programs, into the onboarding, so that it starts to become sort of a part of, the organizational's DNA and their culture. And it's not just, something that's happening over here in a silo, but it's starting to really meld into, all the different touch points that employees have. So those are such great examples. So I'm going to kind of pivot a little bit and kind of think about policy for a minute. I think we've all, can think about all different types of workplace policies that have evolved over the years. And I still remember one of the organizations that I worked for where women had to wear pantyhose. And eventually, when we kind of came into the 21st century, we realized, hey, we don't need to, have that as a policy. Women shouldn't have to wear pantyhose if they don't want to wear pantyhose. So that's just a quick example. But do any of you have any examples of how an ERG or a BRG can influence policy at the organizational level, or any real examples of how your ERG or ERGs have done so?
Well, I think, Quinn, funny enough, we have that same background. So I started in that same company where I started wearing suits, and it eventually evolved to jeans and a blazer. And then it eventually evolves to what makes you feel comfortable. And I think one of the things that we're really proud of last year, our ERG really influenced, like having a look at our dress code. Like, is our dress code really binary? Does it just describe what females can wear and what males can wear? And where do all gender binaries fit, right? Like, do we have inclusive dress codes that really describe the kind of culture that we're trying to promote? We're trying to attract these people. Then do we make it where they can show up the way they want to show up? Or just like we talked about, are they coming covering, and wearing clothes that don't fit them and really don't help them feel like they can be themselves. So I was really proud that we did make some adjustments to our dress code last year, which I think just starts that embedding and making it part of the company culture. And it starts there, and then new people see that, and then it kind of folds into other things. So I was really proud of that last year.
Yeah, that was a great opportunity to collaborate. Anybody else?
We're a people first organization. So I think that D&I has just been ingrained in every decision that we're making, so that we've relooked at everything. I can't speak to policy, but I can speak to just, we're a sales organization. So we have looked at like the scripts and conversations and how we're, communicating to clients. So language, communication, newsletter, language on our website. I think that has been the biggest shift is our language to our potential clients, our prospects, inclusive of what, head of household isn't necessarily the man now, or the household isn't necessarily a man and a woman, or children are not mandatory in each family. So it's generalized now, and it's adjusted based off who that prospect is and how we're actually learning them and changing the script, which I think is one of the biggest wins out of the D&I for us.
Oh, I love that story. That's great. I mean, language, I know we all know the whole like sticks and stones, but words do matter, and word choices have to be intentional in this space. If we really want to do the work, you have to think about, using language that makes everyone feel included. And sometimes that is hard to do because we grew up with certain words, in our cultures or in our society that were okay, I guess, or some of them were never okay, but some were normal. That was just how you describe something. But we now know, because of these conversations and the impact that certain words can have on certain communities, we learn and grow from that. And then you have to be really intentional about making those changes and getting everybody on board with an initiative like that. I'm sure wasn't easy, wrangling everybody together and making it kind of an ongoing thing, right? It wasn't like a start-stop type situation. It's probably something that you're always going to have to monitor and evolve. It's a great example. Thank you, Isabel.
Yeah, we had a policy change through, we participate in journey mapping at the bank, and we've got Black journey mapping. We have LGBTQ plus journey mapping, our disabilities journey mapping teams, and Hispanic, Latinx journey mapping, and there's other journey mapping work that's underway. And just briefly, if you're not familiar with journey mapping, it is truly about engaging with the individuals in those communities to participate in interviews, to understand what are pain points, what works well, what are pain points at your organization, or what are pain points in the community. And then you address those by, developing archetypes and being able to tell a story and being able to impact policies and procedures in an organization. And that has happened at M&T. So the example that I'll give you is Black journey mapping. And up until last year, we had a hair policy that did not allow certain types of hairstyles to be allowed for Black employees. And the Black journey mapping team addressed the policy. That policy was changed overnight. There is no reason that individuals cannot come and be their authentic selves and represent themselves through hairstyles, through dress. We've done gender policy changes. I can talk to you about many of those policy changes, but that is all as a result of our resource group work.
That's amazing. I love that.
And one thing
I want to
will
follow
say
up with you,
is-
Stacie, on the journey mapping. Sorry, Treneice,
ahead,
but
Stacie.
it sounds like such a great way to uncover opportunities for a company. So I'm going to follow up with you on that one.
Yeah. And, for companies, I'm so happy that, Stacie was through the strategies that they've put in place, obviously within the organization, they can identify these issues. But for smaller organizations, or maybe you're listening and you're watching and your organizations don't have certain programs or strategies aligned to identify things that are biased within your culture, if you would. I would say, honestly, have open dialogue. If that's something that you want to have, open dialogue, create safe spaces, which is the whole reason, one of the whole purpose behind ERGs in the first place. But create a culture of safe spaces, psychological safety, strategic psychological safety within your environment, small groups even, where you can have open conversations with different, right? We're all different. Have conversations with different across the board.
Absolutely.
Oh, so well said. So well said. Just because we are a large organization, I never thought we would be able to make the changes that I am seeing. I mean, honestly, when you talk about agile, and it's a word that we throw around, but make no mistake, I'm very pleased and proud of the work that we've done at the organization. I do believe, though, that smaller companies, institutions, businesses, the real opportunity here is pull out the policies and sit down and pull in representation, get backgrounds and perspectives, and just go through it. Lay all of them out and sit down. We actually picked up with a partnership with another company on what they had done. And I mean, it's just amazing if you just take and sit down together and review the policies. And again, having those collective backgrounds and perspectives at the table, but creating that safe and accepting space, you're absolutely right. But if you just go through it and you talk through what people want to see and how they want to be represented and how they want to show up at the company, things can be done. Just take it one step at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. And to Treneice's point earlier, if you've got that CEO or that VP or that executive sponsor, they're in the conversation, they can also make things happen overnight, can't they? So we know the power and influence that those individuals can hold in the organization and how much they can influence their peers. So the more we have, those types of folks, really supporting us, the more opportunity we have to make that change. So we've got a couple more topics. And since I've already mentioned the executive sponsors, I'm actually going to throw that out there and would love to hear from you all. What is the role of the executive sponsor? And I know we've heard a little bit from Treneice about, the CEO, like being the first member. I think that was such a great leadway into the power and influence that executive sponsors can have. But what do you all feel about that? Where are you with your own sponsorship within the organization? How do you define the executive sponsor and the role that they can play to make an impact?
I think executive sponsors are pivotal for success of a network. The reason why is because they're in rooms advocating for you when you're not there. They're able to hear the voice of the people and then take that to those boardrooms and also bring ideas to the table. Executive sponsors also help with the development of the leaders within the organization and the members in the organization, because it's not normal that you get to see that executives. So that now that you're a part of that group, you're able to see the executive more. They're able to interact with you, ask questions. They're willing to answer the questions and speak freely because it is a safe space. And they're there to hear the employees' feedback and feel that heartbeat because they're so far removed from it. Our executive sponsor has been more than pivotal in our success. And I think they will continue to be pivotal in our continued success in our network.
Absolutely.
I agree with Max. Actually, our executive sponsor, like he said, she goes into rooms where we're not at, and she hears different topics and things around our campus that we are not aware of. So she'll bring that to our attention, and vice versa. We'll do that with her. In fact, we have actually a process here that we meet with her before every single energy meeting to sort of discuss the agenda for what we're going to talk about. So often she actually offers, a better way to do things, or she brings idea for us to share with the group. So I think that person is pretty much an ambassador for the group to sort of bring forward things that we ourselves cannot do. So
Absolutely.
I love that. I love that because, if you think about one of the downfalls I've seen with ERGs is that a lot of times we task them with so much, right? There's a heavy load and burden on the ERG leaders, especially, but of course the members as well. And yet there's a lack of authority and power that we bestow on these individuals to really truly make the changes that they are passionate about and that they see as pitfalls within the organization. And of course, on the same token, they're tasked to shape the organizational culture and push that and drive that and develop that, nurture it. However, the executive sponsor, the pivotal role to Max's and Bernadette's point is they give permission. They allow individuals within these groups the permission, the authority, the voice, the agency of really creating the change that they say they want. And so without executive sponsorship, true executive sponsorship, and that's an action word, of course, that's not just a slogan or something that we say, it's really an alignment, and they're being held accountable for the success or failure within these particular groups. Once that action is taken, we'll find that our ERG members and our leaders will find that they're actually more encouraged to speak up, to have psychological safety within these discussions, to actually have the empowerment to make changes, really reasonable changes within the organization, knowing that they're being backed by someone or someone who are more powerful than they are. It just gives them such agency, and instead of being taxed by the work, they feel empowered and emboldened by the work itself of being within these ERGs.
Oh, such a great example. And you mentioned something, Treneice, about burnout and the mental load that ERG leaders often are dealing with, because they are in fact doing this out of volunteer work and outside of their normal work that they already do to contribute to the organization in so many instances. Does anybody else have any ideas or thoughts around how can you help mitigate that? In addition to having an executive sponsor and having that person really active, what are some other things to think about or consider when it comes to mental workload and emotional support in preventing burnout for ERG leaders?
Yeah, I think it's it's how you have the groups set up. So I'll go back to framework, and because when you think about running a resource group, it is the participation of the group together. So we have president, we have vice president, and then we have 5 to 6 steering committee leaders. Before a group can be launched, that has to be established. We attempt to make sure that they are set up for success. And so that carries the card and the skill of delegation. Delegation is one of the biggest skills that can be underrepresented. That delegation can be very hard for individuals because it comes down to candid conversations as well. If you're not doing the heavy lifting, I need to tell you that, Quinne. I need to have that conversation with you. But if you have everyone working, if you have the president doing what they're supposed to be doing, the vice president, you have a communications liaison, you have an event planner, you have someone who plans the volunteer side of things. If you operate under sort of the guidelines and you help them to find ways to master all of that planning together, delegation is the biggest skill here that helps everyone to be successful. So for me, again, it boils down to the framework, Quinne.
Yeah, that's great. Delegation is definitely important. You don't have to do it alone. So again, back to those individuals that are thinking about how do I get started? There are lots of other people that I'm sure are really passionate about this as well, and find out ways to use people's skill sets in different ways so that you're not having to do everything. I think that's a great way to look at it.
And I'll just add, oh, Cassity, no, go. I want to hear what you have to say. No.
Well, what I was going to say too, I mean, I'm so passionate about this because I've like, we describe what the job is as an ERG president or a chair. And we're like, it's required. I mean, it's a big job. You got to delegate, you got to have authority in the room. You got to know when to raise something as an issue. You got to talk about roadblocks. And a lot of times we're like, okay, the person who's 1 year in the job, that's who we're asking to run our ERGs. And that's who we're tapping on the shoulder as a great opportunity for exposure and development for them. But I think there's the gap between where it's like, we should be asking our biggest and brightest people, part of these communities, to take on the opportunity of an ERG chair, because it's an opportunity to develop those skills. Those people that are 3, 5, 10 years in their job. I take the title away and it's like, what are the skills needed for the role? And then I found a lot of folks that they're eager to do those things. So then it's like identifying mentorship, like being really subscriptive with your mentors to say, these are the skills I'm trying to develop because I want to be a really good ERG chair. And I think a lot of times we just like take it as like, you're an ERG chair, you're going to be running all these programs and all these things. And we forget about the skills that are so critical to be developed before they become in that job. So it's such a great opportunity, like thinking about your pipeline. Well, these are the things we're developing. The rest of the chair responsibility is like fostering those skills for the people that are doing those other roles within the board to get them ready to be the chair, to build your little pipeline of people who are going to be taking that responsibility from you. So you're just starting that development so much earlier before you hand them that position, and then they're set up for success, and then they're not feeling so burnt out because they've got the skills to do that job really well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I agree with that, because the groundwork that is laid prior or even during is pivotal. I mean, ERG burnout, and there's once again tons of research around this. It says that especially for ERG leaders, they will spend an average of 10 to 20% of their time per week on specifically ERG work. This is on top of their regular jobs that we do hold them accountable for, and we penalize them when we see the evidence of burnout, right? Which is disengagement. And, we see that people are being a little bit more sharp, which eventually could create a little bit more of a toxic work environment, right? We see the end results of all of this. But it's really important that we recognize that we are offloading a lot of the work of building and creating these amazing cultures. We are offloading that within our ERG volunteer, usually unpaid employees, right? Without, like you said, giving them the proper resources to develop and grow within the organization and see their careers expand and nurture their careers and really see them engage and having not just mentorship, but also sponsorship as well, which is crucially important and quite different. But we offload a lot. The expectation is pretty high usually. We also need to couple that with planned resources, with intentionality, with structured recognition. We need to ensure that these individuals are being recognized for the time that they're volunteering and not getting paid for. We need to recognize them having strategic implemented recognition, creating a system where individuals are being upskilled and reskilled so that you could literally go back and tap these same individuals, make sure that they're prepared for the growth of the organization and not just being left behind. And also, instead of looking always for external resources to come in, focus on the ones you already have, right? Grow them, nourish them, and develop them. You'll get a lot more and a stronger tenureship from these individuals after, at the end of the day.
Oh, well, that was such a great great note to end on. We are at the end of our time here. And I just, again, wanted to thank all of you for all of the time that you spent preparing for this and bringing all of your unique experiences and leadership and advice to our audience today. And as always, to our listeners out there, please get connected with us, Consciously Unbiased. We provide DEI advocacy, consulting, training, and advisory services. And you can see all of our esteemed panelists have been putting themselves out there to connect with you as well. If you want to get that connection going with one of them and get some advice or just learn more about something that they were talking about today, they are welcoming that with open arms. So thank you again. I hope everyone has an amazing afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you again at our next LinkedIn Live.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all very much.